What I really want to talk about today is I want to return to some tried and true themes where we've shown the ability to make money, cycle in and cycle out on the healthcare side. I want to talk about rare disease investing, and I want to talk about backing repeat NEA entrepreneurs. Investing in rare diseases has been successful for NEA for a number of reasons. First of all, it's been driven by a tremendous blooming of science, where we have come to understand these diseases at a molecular level, which has enabled us to tackle some diseases that were previously completely unapproachable by medicine. Secondly, we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years the development of a number of new clinical strategies for running more efficient, more effective, more cost-effective clinical trials. We've also had some really positive developments on both the regulatory side and in the reimbursement world that have all positively influenced our ability to bring new rare disease drugs to market.
You know, rare and orphan diseases is one of the pillars of our strategy on the healthcare team. Maybe 10, 12 years ago, the market dynamics were different. Way back then, big pharma was not involved in rare and orphan diseases, so they weren't acquiring companies like that. But with precision medicine, what we're finding is, a lot of diseases are actually rare because you're identifying the genetics that cause those diseases, so not all diseases are created equal.
There's been such a burst in druggable opportunities. That's really why we thought we needed an entity like Sidon. I decided to really flip the model on its head and wrote a business plan for a rare disease accelerator where we would start with the entrepreneurs that already knew how to develop rare disease drugs, back them with our capital and with a good collaborative group of co-investors around the board table. And then once we had that infrastructure assembled, that know-how and money around the table, we'd then go find the very best projects available to bring into Sidon, rapidly de-risk, and when we failed to kill them, we'd then spin them out into individual newcos. We've had a couple of new spin-outs from Cydan, which you're going to hear about today. The first of those is a company called Imara, which is working on a PDE9 inhibitor for sickle cell disease.
And so really the opportunity for sickle cell disease is to bring novel, innovative therapies to a space that has been relegated to existing standard of care, which is a chemotherapeutic called hydroxyurea.
Sickle cell anemia is a terrible disease, which is really underserved by the medical community now. There are very few therapeutics available for these patients.
And you kind of take the panoply of issues related to the standard of care medicine in sickle cell, and what you see is that patients don't want to take it. We have an oral drug that's given once a day to patients that helps fix the pathology of sickle cell disease. Imara 687 is a potent selective inhibitor of phosphodiesterase 9, enabling more bountiful amounts of cyclic GMP to be in the system. It both addresses the red cell issue related to sickle cell disease, which is the sickled RBC, and the white cell issue, which has to do with the neutrophil and its stickiness. Amara has a phase 2 clinical trial that's ongoing right now in the US and UK. So we'll have data in the first half of 2020, and that'll help guide a phase 3 program. Sickle cell disease is an orphan in the US, 100,000 patients. It's an orphan in Europe, 66,000 patients. In Nigeria, there are 150,000 babies born a year with sickle cell disease. Not an orphan, not rare. What we're finding is that the patients that are in our adult trial are talking to their family members and asking us, when is this going to be ready for pediatrics? Because I know a pediatric patient that could use a drug like this. So one of the nice things with this new financing is that we're going to be able to start looking at patients who have a related but separate disease in beta thalassemia while expanding the sickle cell clinical development.
Rahul rapidly proved the old axiom that great talent begets great talent by building a management team of extraordinary professionals, including a number of repeat NEA entrepreneurs. At Tiberio, we've gone out and recruited a really promising first-time CEO by the name of Abe Cisse. Abe joined us after we got to know him while we were evaluating his prior company. We chose not to invest in that company, but instead to invest in Abe and recruited him over to run Tiburio.
You know, Cydan, I think, is a very innovative model in orphan diseases, one that is able to identify opportunities, de-risk opportunities, and then really accelerate opportunities to form companies. So specifically for Tiberio, these were two assets. Both of our assets in our pipeline were part of a larger pharmaceutical organization that they just deprioritized. And the reality is, when you're looking at sometimes hundreds or sometimes thousands of compounds that these large organizations are working through, you know, sometimes compounds just literally sit on the shelf. But what it does take is it takes, you know, really experienced drug hunters, people that really understand known mechanisms, really understand, you know, human biology, to understand how you can reprioritize, you know, those assets. Non-functioning pituitary adenoma is an orphan condition. It's basically a non-metastatic tumor that grows on the pituitary gland. Significant need for these patients currently. There is no therapeutic option for these patients outside of transsphenoidal surgery, which is an aggressive neurosurgery to remove the tumor, and/or radiation. The vast majority of patients have remnants left after their surgery, and these remnants end up growing again over the course of their lifetime. So really the vision and the promise of TBR-760, our lead program, is we have the ability to actually shrink these tumors, which would alleviate patients having a second brain surgery, transsphenoidal surgery, and potentially allowing them not to have radiation in the future as well to control their tumor. Our next catalyst is really to be able to submit our IND for TBR-760, our initial program. And then we also have another compound, TBR-065, that is looking at a whole host of other rare neuroendocrine diseases. You have development that really can now more fit an orphan pathway versus many large conditions. And also you have investors now that really understand orphan disease and appreciate orphan disease. You can build a successful business, you can provide a return for your investors, and still do great things for patients.
NEA has found that one of the best ways for us to make money over time is by backing people that have already made us money. The magic of backing repeat entrepreneurs is tremendous. The examples are many through our portfolio, and we're continuing to build on that with people today like Mike Gray.
Mike and I worked together at Big Pharma at Glaxo back in the 90s together, and he went his way, I went my way. And we came back together again probably in 2014 when I first invested in Lumina with him.
That initial relationship with NEA was relatively short-lived because the company was acquired shortly thereafter. But I've had the opportunity to work with NEA now in a number of different different companies, and with Mirum being the latest of them.
Mirum is a company that we spun out of Shire. Now, why it's important to us and why it fits our wheelhouse, Mirum's focused on pediatric liver diseases and their orphan liver diseases, and Mirum is actually the same assets that we sold to Shire when we sold Lumina to Shire. And Shire had advanced the programs now, and so now we got two products, 3 indications in rare pediatric liver diseases going into phase 3. So all in all, really good opportunity for us. Mike was able to get the assets out of Shire, build the team, get everything in place, the clinical programs, the regulatory filings are going on, and he identified his president and COO at the time we found was a truly remarkable up-and-coming leader in Chris.
Our initial focus is on pediatric liver disease, and 2 key settings where we've had some interesting results so far. One of them is progressive familial intrahepatic cholestasis, or PFIC. The other one is Alagille syndrome. These are both genetically linked disorders where from a very young age, these children have bile acid backup throughout their bodies and livers, and causes them to have this intense itch. So they'll scratch and itch until their skin is literally breaking, can't sleep, and eventually, most cases will progress on to liver transplant. So it's a really tough, devastating setting for these kids and their families.
There is no approved therapy for for this at the moment. They use a few things off-label, but nothing seems to work. We found with maralixibat that administration of this drug to children such as this can have a profound impact on their lives. A couple of months after starting on the study, they were sleeping through the night. Their skin was clear. They're no longer scratching.
For developing drugs for a very small population like this, it really comes back to what kind of an impact can you have. And so that's what enables a company like Mirum to go after Alagille syndrome and PFIC, is that the potential we have with maralixibat for these patients is quite significant. So we're aiming at life-changing effects that bring an incredible impact to the patient and the family and to the healthcare system as a whole.
One of the attractions of the approach that Mirum is taking is that it's an approach that can be used across multiple orphan diseases. If you think back to the start of the pharmaceutical industry, is really developing products that had a relatively small impact on a large number of patients.
Big Pharma's not good at discovering and developing platform technologies. It's just a fact. And if you look at most Big Pharma right now, a bulk of their pipelines is coming from external acquisitions or from business development relationships.
It's because we understand the science to a level where we can manipulate the causes of the diseases instead of treating the symptoms and fix them. The drugs are working, and Big Pharma is not capturing the innovation. We're doing it. And companies are increasingly keeping the products all the way through development and commercialization and building vertically integrated businesses. NEA has been really fortunate to be a part of this rare disease ecosystem. We've helped a tremendous number of patients, tremendous number of entrepreneurs, and all of our LPs through this practice.